hate needles. Son of a... What the fuck? My head!
What did you make me a tool for?
I can't wait to live in a future if this is what it's going to look like. Beautiful. It's good to know that humanity finally won its war against the trees. I think it's fair to say this isn't the prettiest thing to look at. However, Hard Reset has a number of modern details and quality of life mechanics to keep it from being classed as one of those low effort games trying to cash in on nostalgia. When I first come across this bad boy upside down, rummaging near the bottom of the bargain bin, as I frequently do, it triggered a PTSD episode, as I was reminded of all of the grey shooters I soldiered my best years through. Now, an overload of these shooters not only killed my social skills, but my interest in the genre altogether. Unbeknownst to me, the consequence of many hours staring at concrete corridors had deeply ingrained in my psyche. Subsequently, the need to get back in my box and play one of these dull shooters was indoctrinated. So when I need a fix and I spot a head popping out, my trigger finger is quick to snap at it. This is why I frugally bought Hard Reset, as I knew such occasion was destined to come around again, and I wanted something stashed away. I felt the symptoms coming on while playing Dying Light and Far Cry 5, as neither were satisfying my dirty secret. That being something more streamlined, fast-paced, with an old-school feel, but above all, grey. No open world, collectathons, online, stamina bars, reloading, and no unnecessary guns, equipment, upgrades, and whatever guff games are filled with nowadays. Now, I always say with first-person shooters the mechanics should be perfected, and there is little point in talking about them unless it falls below par. There's no excuse for making a fundamentally poor first-person shooter. To keep it short, Hard Reset does the shooty bit well. It's quick, responsive, and satisfying. That's all good and dandy, but there's a reason dull shooters died out. Yeah, there were so bloody many of them, so what makes this one worth playing then? Let's have a look.
It is time to settle the score.
I'd describe Hard Reset as a light bullet hell shooter. Enemies aren't just thrown out by the ones and zeros in hopes that the numbers will do all of the heavy lifting. It's clear that levels have been designed with set numbers of enemies and thought out spawn points. As you'd assume, there's a variety of things to shoot at, each with their own attacks and weaknesses. This gives every gun and secondary fire mode a use as situations change. There's no stat numbers to crunch here, what you see is what you get. Whack it on and give it a go. Naturally, as I progressed through the game, I got more accustomed to it and learnt little tricks using combinations of weapons to effectively get rid of what was in front of me. For example, I liked using the EMP on these big boys, then using the RPG when they were stunned. What you get is two main weapon classes and a katana, which you can quickly switch between on the fly. With these guns you can unlock additional weapons. The CLN firearm has your traditional weapons. You start off with an assault rifle, then you can use nano to unlock the shotgun, RPG, grenade launcher and proximity mines. And you have the NRG, which is a futuristic electric weapon. You start off with a decent plasma rifle, with later unlocks of a shock blaster, railgun, electric mortar, and a smart gun. What I found helped with coming up with strategies with these weapons is the weapon wheel. When you pull it out, the game pauses. This enables you to take a bit of time to contemplate what you're going to use next. The benefit of this feature for me is that I avoided getting into a blind panic, switching between weapons while everything was taking advantage of me losing my cool. Without it, I definitely would have died more. Talking about deaths, this game is aimed at multiple playthroughs, incrementally increasing the difficulty. But on normal and hard, you're not going to be spending a massive amount of trips to the graveyard. In the 9 hours or so it took me to complete it on normal, I died about 30 times, but keep in mind some of those deaths were stupid. Another feature I liked is the ability to save anywhere. Now, autosaves have their well-established benefits, and rightly so. However, I always like the option, as it enables me to save immediately after doing the tricky bit. Going back to the enemies, something I didn't expect to see was dismemberment. Nothing is more satisfying than taking parts off of the things you're killing. It's what gave Dead Island and Dying Light that little edge over other games. Just keep in mind, Hard Reset's enemies are mainly robots. I was also surprised to see enemies dodge attacks. These little touches made the game that little bit more engaging and challenging. For me, there's nothing more pointless in a game like this than having trash mobs just move in a straight line towards the meat grinder that is me. I'll give Hard Reset an extra point for giving me the option to skip cutscenes. Now, I have nothing against the story, as it's alright, but for the most part I just want to shoot things as quickly as possible, and this game gets that. As I've mentioned it, I may as well talk about the story. As I said, I skipped most of it, but I got the gist of it. The story is set in the future. We play as Fletcher, a hard-drinking cop who has forgotten his past. Mankind has tinkered with AI robotics, so of course it all goes badly and they turn on us. Fletcher's past is entwined with the current story and progressively becomes more connected to it. Yep, it is a bit cliche. Never mind, because the important bit is the things to shoot.
You sick fuck.
And we have been given big bosses as well. These bosses can be spotted a mile off by a large open area. That's a touch of the good old days. They're pretty decent, though there's not a massive amount of them, but again, this game is intended for multiple playthroughs. Another thing Hard Reset lightly focuses on is environmental kills, somewhat like Bulletstorm, but not to the same extent. And for me, Hard Reset have balanced the enemy's type and numbers with the explosions in each section, so it doesn't feel like a bombardment on the senses. Let's focus on the environment constantly blowing up, killing everything. Let me focus on what was going on, because it didn't get over the top chaotic. Hard Reset has gone with health and ammo pickups to give it more of that old-timey feel. Weapon ammo and shields do recharge, but your health doesn't. It was nice to go back to not having regen health, as, let's be honest, it is nonsense. Not having it put more emphasis on my skill to shoot accurately while avoiding taking damage and surviving the stickier parts. This for me makes any shooter more enjoyable, because with regen health I can simply take a face full of bullets then stand behind something, curing my wounds with the power of breathing and checking my phone. To upgrade your weapons and armour you need Nano, which is rewarded for kills and can be found lying around the game. The chunkier Nano pickups are found by discovering secrets in the levels and killing tougher enemies. Some of these secrets though are very generous to be called that. The levels do have puzzles here and there. Most of them boil down to pressing a button or shooting a switch. Not exactly brain busters, but it gives you something else to do in between all the shooting. It's clear that the game doesn't want your progression stalled, so offers you very easy to follow directions. I played this on the PS4 and the PS5. The PS5 version obviously looks better, but it also didn't have loading bars during the levels, which I found a little bit odd on the PS4. The big issue I had on the PS4 is when I came across Atlas. This boss initially wiped the floor with me the first time I came across it, but I got up and gave it another go. Figured out that I had to shoot off its rocket launching bracelets. After doing this, the next stage should have triggered, but he froze. I tried nipping at his feet, calling him names, and shooting his delicates, but he wasn't going to be triggered by any of this and was going to be the bigger person and ignore me. I had no option but to load it from the start. Should have used that save function. In conclusion, Hard Reset gave me exactly what I signed up for. An uncomplicated, satisfying, semi-challenging, short shooter that exceeded my expectations. I must admit it did surprise me with its tight, well-designed gameplay, interesting enemies and weapons. You know, I think it takes some stones to go and do an old school shooter to make that game appeal to a modern audience and please those hardcore original Doom lovers is by no means easy, but I think Flying Wild Hog managed it. I certainly got more than I thought I would have for what I paid for it. This is just a real bargain for lovers of decent unbloated shooters, and it's exactly what I look for in the sales.